Thanks to advances in technology, the world is in constant change. The way we interact with friends and family, the way we buy products and services, and the way we consume content has all changed thanks to technology. And the workplace is no exception. In the days before laptops, the internet, and the mobile phone, workplaces they created a very static working environment. People got used to going to the same office, sitting at the same desk, switching on the same computer that never moves from its location, and spending most of the day in face-to-face meetings because that was the only way we could work together. Thanks to technology and greater connectivity, change started to happen. We can now work around family commitments or at times when we're most productive. And as a result, organisations can retain amazing talent and attract a new workforce that couldn't easily work under these conditions, like working parents like myself. Cancer Research UK has recognised this shift and have created a programme to address this as our opportunity when we move to our head office in Stratford towards the end of this year. So this is our opportunity to respond. The vision for the Future of Work programme was to understand the changing workplace and the challenges that exist at Cancer Research UK and remove the barriers to working in a flexible, collaborative, adaptive and productive way, all attributes that we believe work together for an organisation that needs to thrive in the 21st century way of working. The programme was designed to address the full stack of change, from our hardware and software, our processes and structure, right through to our cultures, our behaviours, the way we do things around here. Now, when we use words like adaptive, it's really important that we explain what we mean. In my experience, language is often the biggest barrier to change, so it's really important that we use words that make sense and people could understand because they were core to the programme that we were running. So flexible. This is having the technology, the environment and the policies to share and to work in a different location, regardless of whether that's working from home or whether that's working in a different location within the office. Collaborative. This is having the tools and the environment to share, co-create and work on projects together. Adaptive. This is building the willingness and the resilience in the organisation to try new things, learn from those experiences and actively make change to improve ourselves, our processes and the way that we work, as well as how the programme is run. And productive. We believe if we build an environment that's flexible, collaborative and adaptive, we will work on things that make more sense to the charity and add more value to the work that we want to do. It was really important to the programme that the culture and behavioural change that we wanted to see had the same level of importance as the environment and the hardware changes that we were doing. So the things that are more easily seen and understood, the tangible things. So the design of the programme reflected this. We broke the programme down into 3 ways of activity to reflect the fact that behaviour change is just as important. The first wave of activity is aimed at giving the tools for change to staff. So this included rolling out laptops to staff across the organisation and ensuring that anyone can work from a flexible location, so they don't always have to be in the office, they can move around. We adopted cloud-based software, in our case Microsoft Office 365, to enable staff to access files and folders regardless of their location. We upgraded to Skype Enterprise Voice, removing the reliance on traditional desk phones so staff can communicate regardless of where they are, whether in the building or outside. And we introduced test and learn as our methodology in the programme. And we started out with initial experiments that looked at some of our initial assumptions. So we sent laptops to regional workers because we had an assumption that staff could self-serve their own setup. And we also usability tested meeting room equipment that we wanted to make a decision on for our head office move in Stratford. Wave 2, which is the wave that I lead on and the one I'm most excited about, is exploring new ways of working. Now that we've removed the technology barriers, you've got the tools to change, now let's explore. And in this wave, we've investigated some of the cultural and behaviour barriers that exist at Cancer Research UK. We've created organisational plans that allow anyone at CR UK to test new and improved new ways of working. And we're analysing the insights gathered across the entire organisation to make recommendations as to how we should work when we move to Stratford and beyond. And then wave 3 is about turning all the insight from the trials that we're running at the moment into our new normal. And this is presenting back to the organisation all of the insights that gather through the trials across the organisation. We're going to create, redesign and improve our processes, our guidances, our HR policies to reflect the insights that's been gathered. And designing the right processes for continuous learning. We're really conscious that the insight gathered during these trial periods will become old as soon as the programme finishes. So we need to have the staff equipped with the right resources to allow anyone in the organisation to continuously learn and improve on our culture. The engines and specialist knowledge are the skills and capabilities that each wave of activity can pull on in order to achieve its objectives. We have governance, which oversees all elements of the programme, coordinates our reporting and running our decision-making processes. We have comms, which owns the whole narrative of both our Future of Work programme and our move to Stratford, ensuring everybody has all the right information that they need in order to make the right decisions and run their trials. We have Test and Learn, which is an engine that I lead on, and this drives the experimentation. This gives the staff the right resources and capabilities to run their own trial, as well as encouraging the programme itself to test and learn on ourselves. We have Knowledge, which coordinates our information gathering, helps us make sense of all the data that's coming back, and play this back to the organisation. Technology Change makes sure that we define and refine our processes, our technology processes. We have HR Employee Services, who own and write our HR policies and supports the organisation in the co-writing of the iterations of those policies. And we have Learning and Development, and they own the technology training to support the upskilling of the organisation in the tools that we are using across the organisation. And we have behavioural scientists at Cancer Research UK who are supporting with the measurement of the behaviour change. So to delve a bit more deeper into Wave 2 specifically, we started our journey with starting to understand where we are as an organisation, the challenges that we face in working in a flexible, collaborative and adaptive way. In order to do this, we ran face-to-face workshops, Skype meetings to gather insights across the entire organisation. And we ran sessions called Wall of Challenges, which delves a bit deeper into department-specific challenges. We conducted external research to understand what other organisations are doing in this space. We also had to understand some of the needs from the Stratford move perspective that we sort of promised or needed to have in order for our move to the new building to be successful. And we also worked alongside our executive board to understand if there was anything that they wanted to address in this opportunity of change. We analysed all of that data and we boiled that down into 6 organisational themes. Now we're in the middle of our journey, which is the test and learn and outputs, this sort of test and learn journey that we have here. And this is where we've designed self-serve trials that any member of staff at Cancer Research UK can run their own trial, understand what works and what doesn't, and feed their learnings back into the Future of Work programme. And then in September of this year, we will transition into Wave 3, which is taking all of those insights and redesign and design our processes, our HR policies and guidance. So the 6 themes that we're dealing with in Future of Work Wave 2 are flexible working, activity-based working, meeting etiquette, online tools, file management, and reducing paper. Each theme is led by a representative at Future of Work who works alongside a selected community of department change leads across the organisation. And they're representatives of their team, and it's their responsibility to cascade information about their theme, to run their trial, to gather the insights, and to feed that back into the Future of Work team. The Future of Work theme lead is responsible for ensuring the department change lead has everything they need to run their trial. So that could be answering questions, creating resources, giving guidance, and sometimes going into team meetings and running workshops with them. But it's essentially their resource, their help to get their trial up and running. So to go into a bit more detail about each one of these themes, flexible working. Our challenge that came out of research was there's a lack of consistency across the organisation about what is and what isn't culturally allowed. We have at Cancer Research UK both informal and formal flexible working. And the formal flexible working is a contract change that you want to make, and that might be reducing your hours down to part-time or changing your base location to working from home. This was well understood by staff. People knew what they needed to do, they understood the processes. It was the informal flexible working that was less clear and less consistent across the organisation. And this was our focus for Future of Work. The informal flexible working enables staff to flex their working location or their hours, so their start and end time, to find a better work-life balance for them. And it means that they could work in a time that is most productive for them, both benefiting staff and the organisation. The reason for this challenge is mainly because the decision to allow that level of flexibility was left to the discretion of managers. And the flexible working policy essentially dealt with the legalities of flexible working and not necessarily the cultural impacts of decisions around flexible working. So there was a need to support managers to lead their team by outcomes and not presenteeism. So our approach for flexible working, we focus primarily on educating and enabling the organisation to run a 3-month trial to test out flexible working. HR refreshed the flexible working policy, and we put that out into the organisation as a 3-month trial. We created a manager's toolkit which went into more details about how managers can run a team that they don't necessarily see. We created a short video for managers which introduced all the resources that were available to them to run their 3-month trial. But more importantly, it had the executive director of HR in the video, senior endorsement. And it was really, really important to us, a predominantly technology team, that we had the backing of HR and we were seen to have the backing of HR when we're dealing with a topic like flexible working. We created an experiment planning training guides in the form of a 1-hour workshop for anybody to be able to run. It had a facilitator's guide, so they knew exactly what they needed to do step by step. And it ensured any manager, head or director could run their workshop from understanding how their team works now, some of the things that they want to trial, and set metrics in place to measure its success. Now we're in the trial period. We run monthly online drop-in sessions for anyone to ask a question about flexible working. And these are led mainly by HR. And we often attend meetings to support with the setting up of those trials or supporting any questions that come out. For activity-based working, I guess the challenge for us really was collaboration was built very much into the heart of the building in Stratford. There was more physical space to be working together and less fixed desk locations. But in reality, culturally, we just weren't ready for this shift. We weren't ready for hot desking, and we weren't ready for true collaboration. So what we focused on was changing the perception around meeting rooms, because there was a really strong meeting room culture at Cancer Research UK. And we challenged ourselves to look at whether we actually need a meeting room or whether we just need a space, as well as educating and enabling staff to use these different types of spaces. We worked along HR to write a brand new activity-based working policy to offer staff guidance on the types of spaces available, how to use them, as well as the health and safety issues around each space. Now, some of the things that were included in that policy was not taking a desk when you're in meetings all day, or beach toweling, like we like to call it. Or using a quiet space when you want to do focus work instead of sitting in the office, open planned office with loads and loads of noise. Included in the activity-based working policy was a clear desk policy, ensuring staff can feel comfortable to sit at any desk and not feeling like they're intruding in someone else's home with pictures of dogs and children and all sorts. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. There are some jobs that just don't lend itself very well to activity-based working. So people that work on an IT help desk. So we are looking at a subsection of the entire workforce at Cancer Research UK. As part of the Wave 1, giving everybody tools to be able to change, we also built a collaboration space in our current office that looks very similar to the type of space we would have in Stratford. And that was to provide different working locations for people to work within the office so they can bring to life their trials in a real sort of way. So at the moment, we're currently testing the comprehension of that policy, as well as implementing those principles in a 3-month trial to understand what works, what doesn't, so we can change and iterate that policy ahead of our move to Stratford. Meeting etiquette. Now, our challenge with this, we heard through research, was people were really struggling to dial in on meetings and they were having really poor meeting conditions. So we heard from staff that people were being forgotten on the phone, or they were not included when there was face-to-face or post-its all over the walls. There was no way for them to interact. Or worse, they were sitting on a Skype call waiting to be dialed into a meeting, only to give up after 10 minutes. We also had the assumption that as more people work flexibly, this problem will scale. It will become an organisational-wide issue. So meeting etiquette started life as Skype meeting etiquette, providing details on how to have an effective Skype meeting or online meeting, what you need to do before, during, and after your meeting. And this was posted in every meeting room with a phone across the building. But as the new technology started rolling out, we started to see some really new and interesting behaviours, like people being on BBC News in a meeting. So we had to expand this theme to look at meeting etiquette face-to-face, meeting etiquette in collaboration spaces, as well as online meetings. So we rebranded. We created 3 different guidance. We cascaded that information, and now we're in the process of teams now testing the principles over a 3-month period. And every month we're gathering results from those trials, and we're now on our 3rd iteration of that policy. Online tools. So the challenge we heard was introducing Microsoft Office 365 and the fact that we have many other tools like Miro, Mural and Trello. There's loads of them. Slack, there's all of them. People were really, really unclear as to what tools they should use when and how best to use those tools, which presented us an opportunity to look at the full stack of offering that we have at Cancer Research UK, understand what works and what doesn't work for the types of roles that we have at the charity. We focus on educating staff on each tool and enabling them to run tests on this software in a safe environment to ensure that they don't break anything and they can feel comfortable. With a view to, at the end of Wave 2, we can make a recommendation back to the organisations, backed up by data, to say this is the tool that you should be using for this type of job and this is how you can use it. The online tools theme is broken down into 3 prongs. We have self-serve, we have as-is plus, and we have bespoke trials. The self-serve section is a group of software tools that we believe any staff can pick up without having to go to a training session. You can sort of just pick them up and learn. Things like Microsoft Whiteboard or Microsoft OneNote for individual use. We've provided some guidance which live on our Future of Work SharePoint site on how to set these tools up and how to use them. As-is Plus is an extension of training that was already available by Learning and Development. We've created in-depth training sessions that's run on Skype for each tool. And we've also created a tool selector so staff can select what tool best meets their challenge and attend that session. So they don't have to attend sessions for every single tool. They can choose which one they want to go to. We've created sandpits in these tools for staff to be able to test all the functionality they like without fear of breaking something or changing something permanent. And then the bespoke trials. So this section focuses more on department-specific challenges that cannot be solved by just picking up a new tool or attending a training session. So staff are encouraged to submit their challenge to Future of Work, which is analysed by us. And then we build a small team around that challenge to help them run their own trial. File management. So we heard through research that staff cannot find their files and folders, and that it's a complete mess. You've got files from 1999, they cannot find it, it's a complete mess. And we know that being able to access files and folders from a flexible location is core to us achieving our vision. So our approach really was not to design this into a trial, because we actually had another project looking at shifting our network drives over to shared cloud location. So our role in Future of Work was to get the prep work done. So we've built a working group across the organisation of department change leads, and it's their responsibility to audit, fun job, audit all the files we have at Cancer Research UK and design a file structure for staff to more easily be able to access their files and folders regardless of their location. And reducing paper. So this didn't really come out of research, but it's Cancer Research UK's ambition to reduce the amount of paper that we use as an organisation. And with the introduction of new software tools, this is a really good opportunity for us to look at how much paper we're using and use the tools instead of printing. Tools like Microsoft OneNote for note-taking. So every month we present each department with stats on how much printing they're making, and with the support of a sustainability coordinator, we help them to look at ways in which they could actually reduce the amount of paper that they're doing based on real stats. So measuring behaviour. So measurement is key to any programme to understand whether it's successful or not. And for Future of Work, we need to measure the trials, we needed to measure our approach, and we also needed to measure the behaviour and culture change. And in order to do this, we have different layers of measurement. We have the measurement of large-scale or wide benefits. We have the measurements of the 6 themes, which I've just gone through. And we also have behavioural change metrics. For the large-scale org-wide benefits, these were big change themes that the programme could contribute to but couldn't solely own responsibility for. Things like increased technical skills and confidence, increased connection and increased collaboration within and with external partners, tasks and actions being managed more efficiently and effectively, documents being better organised, decisions being made through test and learn rather than the highest paid person in the room, better use of physical workspace, and meetings using Skype are more inclusive and productive. These large-scale benefits, the data in which we're collecting for this, mainly were through surveys that already existed. So at Cancer Research UK, we have a staff engagement survey, and we're measuring these metrics, these benefits through that. For the 6 organisational themes, we're using a framework called HEART, which was designed by Kerry Rodden and Hilary Hutchinson and Xin Fu, I hope I pronounced that name correctly, from Google's research team. And the idea of the HEART framework really is to deliver a series of user-centred metrics to support the measurement of user experience on a larger scale. So for each theme, we designed the goal, the signal, and we designed the metric. And the structure for the HEART framework is what you can see on the screen now. So we have happiness, which is the attitude or satisfaction. We have the measurement of people's interaction, which is engagement. The measurement of new users over a certain amount of time, which is adoption. And the success of completion, which is task success. And to measure behaviour, we're using the behaviour change wheel from the book Behaviour Change Wheel, A Guide to Designing Interventions. We're using this framework as a way of bringing together the large-scale benefits, our 6 themes metrics, into a format that where we can say each element of the programme contributing to our overall aim. So from my left to right, the ultimate goal for Future of Work is to create a working environment that's flexible, collaborative, adaptive, and productive. And then moving in, we have the large-scale, org-wide benefits that the entire Future of Work programme is there to design. And then we have the benefits that just Wave 2 are here to design, which I have gone through today. And you can see how they feed into each stage of the process. And then the lighter boxes are the actual behaviour change wheel. So we have the automatic motivation, which is the automatic emotional reactions of people, the desires, the reflex responses. We have the opportunity, which is the physical, the social opportunity awarded by social cultural norms or the environment. We have the reflective motivation, which is the self-conscious intentions or plans or beliefs of what's good and what's bad. And then we have capability, which is the psychological and physical skill or capability. So for us, this program is this framework is a work in progress, and we've been supported by behavioural scientists to get this right. And that's getting the information in each section right, as well as the language, because once we start sharing this with people, we want to make sure that it doesn't freak anyone out, they can understand it, and it makes sense to everybody. So we're still halfway through our journey, but we've started to see some really great results, but we've also faced a number of challenges along the way. Some of the challenges that we faced, we've had some reluctance from some teams to actually get involved or engage with all of the themes. Although we encourage teams to take on themes that are a higher priority for them, the reality is there's some themes that we need to nail. There's some targets we need to have in place before we move to Stratford. So we're considering changing tact at the moment around some of the themes that need to be achieved before and after we move. The speed of the programme means things change all of the time. We're learning through the test and learn trials, but we're also testing and learning on ourselves. So keeping up to date, ensuring everybody is on board and has all the information they need is a challenge for us. And we use as much as possible a strong governance structure to allow that cascading of information. Senior endorsement is not always there. And it's not always consistent across the organisation, and that can sometimes slow us down with some of the themes that are bigger or not necessarily seen as a technology theme. And getting the right message out to the staff on the right medium at the right frequency is a constant challenge, especially when things are changing all the time. But that's one that we're testing and learning on ourselves as well, and re-evaluating what's working and what's not. And often the merging of methodologies presents a challenge at every stage, in every meeting. Quite often we have traditional project management represent in a room, we'd have the lean, agile service design represent in the room, and we would have HR represent in the room. So we've got lots of different experiences, lots of different capabilities and methodologies trying to make this work, and then present it back to an organisation in a simple way that they can self-serve and do the work themselves. We've started to see some great success as well. We've seen the majority of the staff really enthused, and some of the themes really resonate with them, and it's almost like, thank goodness somebody is tackling this for us. And which meant that having the department change leads in place and getting the trials up and running has not really been too much of a barrier for us. We now have a whole directorate, which is 5 departments across 6 themes. They've been running a trial for a month now, and we're starting to see some of the results come through. The bulk of the analysis will happen in the next couple of weeks. And some of the data that we've seen come through so far is for activity-based working, people are understanding the policy, which was really important because that was new for us. We needed to make sure people understood it. And we've started to see people using different types of spaces across the organisation for the different types of work that they're doing. For flexible working, we've seen people feel that they have a much better work-life balance and that they're in more control of that. The challenge still, though, is the consistency, and that's something we will hopefully address as more trial data start coming through. For online tools, we've had 79 new Microsoft Teams sites created, and these are test sites for people to mess around with, test the functionality. And we've had some really great attendance in our training sessions. And as I mentioned before with meeting etiquette, we're now in our 3rd iteration of that. And some of the data that's been collected from the org-wide benefits show collaboration across the organisation has improved. We've seen an 80% increased connectivity with staff within Cancer Research UK, and 60% reporting better connectivity with external partners. We've seen 45% decrease in travel costs as connectivity is better, so we have less reliance on having to be in a different location physically. We've had a report of 65% of staff feeling less stressed and being more in control of their work-life balance. And we've had staff reporting saving at least 24 minutes per day on average by having the new laptops, so they're less stressed about setting themselves up or having issues technically with meeting rooms and setting themselves up to do their work effectively. So what's next? With the first set of trials kicking off and the trials going on until September, we're expecting to see greater increases and more data coming through and further iterations. we're not just implementing a change program. We've not just created a new tool and thrown it out for people to use. We are enabling every staff member to trial, build our culture, and to with the whole aim of retaining talent and to build a more resilient organisation. We do all of this by making insight-driven decisions. And it's important to us that we do that because our goal is that 3 in 4 people survive cancer by 2034. Our next big step is to build Wave 3 and to enable every single staff member to continuously learn. And that is to build the culture, that is to build the processes and equip the staff to ensure that when this program closes, we will continuously test and we will continuously learn. And all with the aim of changing our policies, changing our guidance, our processes, and essentially the way we are at Cancer Research UK. Any questions?
We do have plenty of time for questions, so please shout. 2 on that side. I think your hand went up first, sir.
I might have missed it, but have you got a definition of flexible time, maybe 4 hours or whatever it was?
So this is the question I get asked all the time. So the policy itself doesn't give much sort of strict guidance, I guess, around what is acceptable and what's not in flexible working. So I think that's where the challenge is, where people have sort of interpreted it in lots of different ways. So for us, our only boundary really is you can flex your start and end time and you can flex your working location. Some people are very comfortable with that, which means that they can start testing longer lunches or coming in at 10 o'clock and leaving at 6, or starting at 8 and finishing at 4. And so some people are more comfortable with that. Others need a lot more guidance. So we've been working with some teams to actually create a more in-depth policy for them, which interprets the current policy to say that these are the things that we culturally accept within that department. Hi.
I'd love to know a little bit more about just before where your presentation started, like how did the decision get made that this was actually a big programme of work and multidisciplinary involvement rather than just an office move?
Yeah, so the move to Stratford started out as we're closing down a building and building a new one. But as that process started unfolding, we started looking at the types of different furniture and spaces that we want in the building, and that then started opening us up to working collaborative and flexibly. We also had a situation where staff were saying that they don't want to move to the new building unless the technology is right, unless there's more flexibility. And that cultural element sort of took us away from closing down a building and building a new one. So my director actually held her hand up and said, that cultural stuff I want to take, because I want to do this in a real sort of test and learn way, and rallied a group of people who really believe in that methodology to then take it from, we need to create this environment that we know needs to be flexible, we know we need to work in a different way. What does that even mean to actually a programme of work that we can deliver? So that's where it came from. Yeah, and then.
Do you have any multi-time zone sort of things to deal with, or do you not really experience that?
Not massively, no. I think we do have scientists overseas that work with Cancer Research UK, but this programme itself is focusing mainly on those within the UK. So no, we don't have to deal with that as much, no.
I'm Lisa.
Hi.
How do you manage both the tension and the expectation between the early riser and the late worker? And do you have a sort of a policy that says we expect response within X number of hours, or we're very flexible about it?
So at the moment, there isn't a huge amount of expectation, and that is exactly what these trials are here to do. So that workshop, that flexible working workshop, there's sort of like 3 areas to it. You either are doing flexibly and there's some tension that you want to sort of figure out and you want to test it, or I'm not doing flexible working at all and I want to try something new. And the idea is at the end of that workshop you create a team charter which then says, well, if I'm an early riser, this is how I'm going to behave. I'm going to put it in my diary. If I am somebody who likes to work late, then I'm going to block some time in my diary between 9 and 10 because I'm not going to be in the office. So every department has a team charter that they then put to the test for 3 months. And the idea is then for us to take all the learnings from those trials and then figure out, right, as an organisation, what do we need to do with this now? We've got a bunch of people that start at 8, we have a bunch of people that start at 10. What do we now need to have in place to make sure that we can still be productive? Do we need to have a rule to say you block out your time 8 to 10, no one has any meetings, and you block out your time 4 to 6, no one has any meetings, and work can only be done between 10 and 4? That might be an outcome, but it's up to the trials to tell us that. Yeah.
How does that change? Have you had less meetings?
So we have a meeting room culture where it's, if I wanted to have a meeting with you, I will book a room. And sometimes that results in us sitting in a 16-person meeting room because there's no other meeting rooms. And then you have the poor person trying to book an external meeting with external partners, can't finding a room. So the change in the perception of it was all based around the policy that we wrote. So highlighting first, I guess it was the education of highlighting that there are different spaces and that you don't have to have a meeting room if it's just 2 people or 3 people. I think part of that was the technology as well. So people were using meeting rooms because then they can project on a screen. But with the new laptops now, you can present just within the room. And then the third thing was around building the collaboration space. So that has different types of furniture within it, so people they don't have to use a meeting room. They can just sit on a sofa. So I think by tackling those 3 areas, that's how we're sort of changing that meeting room culture. We're not 100% there. It's a journey, and we'll see what comes out of the trials.
So if, like me, you like biscuits, we should probably stop with questions there and race downstairs. It's a short break, and then we'll talk to you.
Thank you.